hello everybody and welcome back to this lesson. So today we are going to be looking at different way we can insert CSS into our code, different way we can write CSS. For now you can see we are just creating an external file and writing CSS. I want to also show you different ways we can write CSS, different way we can insert CSS. But before we go deeper into that, if you all can remember, I gave you a challenge in our last lesson. So the first thing I want to do here is to give you a solution to this challenge. So let's just get into that. Now the challenge says use an element selector to set all P element color to gray. Now the first thing I want to do here is to have a P element. So I'm just going to let me just empty my body. Let me just empty my body here. I'm going to be doing almost the same thing, but I just want to empty my body so that we'll be doing this from fresh again. The first thing I want to do here is, let me say we should use the first challenge say use an element selector to set all P element color to dim gray. So let me remove all the styles that are here. Now first I want to have an P element because they are telling us to style our P element, so we need to have our P element. So I'm just going to say if you use an element selector, right? Let me see. One is supposed to use an element selector. The second one is supposed to use a class selector. The third one is supposed to use an ID selector. So I'm just going to create elements that can help me use this. So this first one, maybe let me just start with an ID selector. Let me give it an ID called intro. And let me just say welcome to CSS selector. Welcome to CSS selectors. That is my first one. The second one, I'm just going to say P. This is where I want to use my element selector. So let me know just I'm not going to give it any class or ID. I'm just going to leave it like that. This is a let me just say this is a normal paragraph. This is a normal paragraph. Let me add a full stop. Then the last line now. That's I'm just going to say this paragraph is highlighted because if you look at this, I've used an ID selector to set intro, use an element selector to set all P elements color to dim gray. I've set one there. Use a class selector to set highlight background color to yellow. So now I'm going to create this one as a class selector. So I'm just going to say class selector. The same should call it highlight. So I'm just going to call it. I'll say highlight. This then I'll say this paragraph is highlighted. So since as simple as this, is just what I'm going to do. Now, we are going to go into the solution now by creating the CSS. Let me just move this in here. In my CSS, what I want to do is, the first one is an element selector. So I'm just going to say element selector. Use an element selector to set all P elements color to dim gray. So I'm just going to set all P elements color to dim gray. You can see, if you look at it here, all of them color have changed to dim gray because all of them are inside P paragraph. Then they say use a class selector to set dot highlight background color to yellow. So let's do that. Dot highlight. So give it a background now. Background color. I'm just going to say yellow. That's what they say we should do there. And the last one is our intro. Use an ID selector to set hashtag intro font size to 20 pixels. So let's do that. If you remember, we declared an intro up there, an ID intro there. So to target an ID is hash. We use hash yes for ID. So font size 20 pixels. If you look at it, it gets. So that's just the challenge I gave you guys to do. The main reason of this challenge is just to test your knowledge. If you have understand when to use dot highlight, if you understand how you can target your ID, how you can target your element selector, how you can also target your class selector. That's the main reason of this challenge I gave to you guys, and I want to believe that you all did it very well. You all were able to achieve it. You all were able to complete this challenge. So now we are going to go into our today's lesson, which is how to add CSS. Now, we want to look at the different ways we can add CSS into our code. What we have been doing here so far is that we created a separate file here, and we are changing the look of our website by just changing the styles that is inside this file. That's what we have been doing here so far. This is the external CSS. This is called the external CSS. where we have a CSS in a separate file. We link it, if you remember, up here. We link it to our HTML, and anything we change inside here apply to our HTML. So this is an external CSS. This is the method that we use. The method we are using here is an external CSS method. And one thing, you see, an external CSS is very important, it's very useful and very powerful. An external CSS can be written in any text editor, you can see, and you must save it as .css. It must not be styles.css. Don't get yourself confused. Anything you want to name it, just name it, but let's end with .css. Let's have this .css format, and you link it to your HTML file. You can see this is a .css format. You cannot start putting HTML tag in here. It's not going to work. It's just going to give you an error. This is a CSS file, and all what is expecting to be inside here is CSS code. That's how programming languages work. As the CSS format, all what is expecting is CSS code. Now I'm going to go into the next one, which is the internal CSS. So the internal CSS, that's what we want to look at, the internal CSS. So let me just clear this, and I'm just going to keep using it like this, but let me unlink this one here. So in here now, let me just remove this class so that you can see. I don't want to make this to look very simple. I just have two people tag here. One say this is a paragraph, the second one say this paragraph is highlighted. So that's just the two p tag I have here. So now I want to show you internal CSS. See, an internal style sheet may be used if one single HTML page has a unique style. That's just when we use an internal style sheet. And I'm going to show you an example. So the way we use an internal style sheet, we use it inside the style element, and this style element must be inside the head. So if you remember, I did something like that in one of our classes where I just declared something, the style element, and I put it there. Instead of head now, I'm just going to open a style element just like this. You can see now any style sheet. Now inside the style element, now I can write CSS that I want. That's just how the internal CSS works, and I can show you an example here. I have let me change this to a H1. So in here now I can change the color of my H1 by just doing the same thing that we all know how to do already. I'll say color. So you can see what I just did here. Inside my styles element, inside my style element here, I just write a CSS inside here, and you can see that it's working. So that's just what we do with inline CSS. That's just how inline CSS work. You declare a style element, and you write your CSS code inside here. It's not like what we have been doing here, and we have a separate style sheet, and we can import this, link this to any HTML tag, multiple HTML tag, and use it there. But you see, an inline CSS can only be written inside one particular HTML file. Only this HTML file that this style will be applied to. That's just one thing about inline CSS. So this is the solution to the exercise, and this is just inline CSS and external CSS. I just say okay, I just decided to show you guys. This is just two ways we can add CSS into our code. We can either use the external CSS, which is creating a separate file, or we use the inline CSS, which is writing it inside here. For just this inline CSS just applies that to a single HTML file. So with what I've shown here now, you can also see it yourself that the best way to write CSS is creating a separate file. That's the best way to write CSS. You want to separate your HTML elements from your CSS. Just imagine that your project keep getting bigger. You are writing multiple thousands of lines of code, and your CSS is together with your HTML file. That's going to be very, very bad and unprofessional. So the best way and the recommended way to use our CSS is to always create a separate .css file for it. I just want to show I just want to show you guys this so that in the future, if you see any developer doing something like this, or if you see any code where inline CSS is being used, you are not going to be confused. You're also going to understand that okay, this is also possible. This is an inline CSS, also possible to write CSS directly inside your HTML element, your HTML file. So in the next video, we'll make your website look even more better, and because we are going to learn colors, we're going to learn about colors, text styling, fonts, and typography. And in that next video, In that next lesson, your website is going to start looking very, very model. It's going to start looking like model website. And I will see you in that next lesson.